Okay, so yesterday we practiced how to do substitution, and today we're actually going to use substitution to find some solutions. So before we begin, just like graphing, we can still have three types of answers. We can have one answer, which is going to be written as x comma y. We can have no answer, which we have to write as no solutions. Or we have number three, which is infinitely many solutions. And we're going to talk about all three of these. So we are going to look at number 1, 2, and 3 together. So let's begin with number 1. We have x equals negative 2y plus 3, and then we have negative x minus 2y equals 20. This x has stuff that it's equal to, so I'm going to plug that in for my other x. Now remember from yesterday, we are going to rewrite this whole bottom equation, but we are going to leave a big blank space where we see this x. So I have negative big blank space and then minus 2y equals 20. All right, now I am going to write that stuff. So I got that negative 2y plus 3, and now I have substituted correctly. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to solve. And we are still going to be using this skill. Parentheses, combine like terms, variable, isolate, move the constant. I'm going to just talk us through it and go pretty fast. Now I have a negative in front of this parentheses, which is technically a negative 1, because right, there's technically a negative 1 in front of that x. So I'm going to distribute that, and this gives me 2y minus 3 minus 2y equals 20. These two drops down, and I multiplied that negative 1 inside of the parentheses. Now I am going to combine like terms like I did before. 2y and negative 2y combined, but 2 minus 2 is 0, so we are going to actually just cancel those out because 0x is not something we write, okay? 0y is not something we write because 0 times anything is 0. So I need you to write this somewhere on your paper, and I really recommend writing it down here in this big blank space that I left you. All right, so 0x, 0y, it's not something we write. Okay, so it's just going to totally cancel out, which is why I crossed it out. This leaves us only with negative 3 equals 20. I can't do anything more with that, so this is what my final answer is going to be. All right, so this is no solution because we are left with something that is not true. Negative 3 is not equal to 20, and all the variables canceled. Okay, so it's no solution, all variables canceled, and this, what we're left with, is not true. So that's how we get a no solution in substitution. Now let's look at number 2 here. So number 2 here, we have y equals 3x, and then 10x minus 2y equals negative 16. Which one has a variable that's equal to just some stuff? The y is equal to this stuff, it's equal to this 3x. So I'm gonna replace it with, in the second equation for this y down here. So let's rewrite this bottom equation, leaving a big blank space for the y. All right, so I left a big blank space of this y because I'm gonna replace that with a 3x, or I'm gonna substitute. And now I'm gonna solve. I'm gonna deal with my parentheses. Negative 2 times 3x, this gives me 10x minus 6x equals negative 16. These are like terms. 10x minus 6x is 4x, which gives me 4x equals negative 16. I divide away that 4 because I don't have any adding I can do. These cancel, we're left with x equals negative 4. Okay, so I got a variable equal to something. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna write that right away as part of my solution because I know x's number. So I'm gonna write this as x comma y. That's how we need to write it. So if I know x's number, I'm gonna write that number first because we write it as an ordered pair. So I'm going to write this as negative 4 comma, because that's what I have so far. I know x's number is negative 4. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take what I know about x and plug it into one of these two equations, doing the same thing. I'm going to choose this first one because one, it's a lot smaller. So I'm going to rewrite this first equation. So I'm going to take this guy and rewrite it. So I got y equals 3x. We already know that this x is negative 4. So I'm gonna rewrite this. Instead of having an x, write it with that negative 4. And again, I should put a parentheses around what I'm replacing. If I'm replacing x, put a parentheses around it. Hey, I know how to do this. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. So this gives me y equals negative 12. Now I know y's number. This is awesome. I know y's number is negative 12. So I'm gonna write that in my solution, and look at that. Now I'm done. If you get a variable equal to a number, that means you can start figuring out the solution. Plug it in, solve, get a number. Plug in again to either one using this new number we got, solve again, you get the second number. You need to have 2 numbers unless you start off with something that's not true, where stuff cancels out, okay? Let's look at number 3. It's our last one of the day. So we have x equals 2y minus 10, and then we have 6y minus 3x equals 30. Which variable is equal to some stuff? My x is equal to stuff. It's equal to 2y minus 10, so I'm gonna replace this x here with that stuff. All right, so there's the big parentheses, and I'm gonna replace that with what I have circled. All right, so now that I have replaced that, I can do some solving. So distribute, this gives me negative 6y plus 30, minus 6y in front here drops down, and the equals 30 also drops down. I have like terms, 6y minus 6y. Well, 6 minus 6 is 0, so that's one of those instances where if we have 0y or 0x, we can just cancel out. It is not something we write. So we're left with 30 equals 30. Okay, well that's cool. This is something new. This is important too. This is something that is true and all variables canceled. So before it was not true and all variables canceled, so we were left with no solution. So this time, if we're left with something true and all variables canceled, what do you think the answer is going to be? It's going to be infinitely many, okay? Because we're left with something true and all variables canceled. All right, so before you go, you can either have one answer where you get x's number and y's number. You're left with no solution if all the variables cancel out and you're left with something not true. So like the 2's canceled, the 2 y's canceled out, and we're left with this. Or you have infinitely many because your variables totally cancel out and you're left with something true. 30 is equal to 30, okay? It's very important. This note here is so important. You cannot have 0x or 0y. Let's write that in there too. It's not something we write, okay? That's why we just totally crossed them out, okay? Because 0 times 0 is anything. So again, write this somewhere on that paper down in that bottom section.